The year was 1878 in the heart of Arizona territory, where winter came like a predator. Silent, patient, deadly. The wind didn't howl here, it cut. It sliced through the canyon corridors with surgical precision, carving away warmth, carving away hope, carving away life itself. And in this frozen wilderness, there lived a man who belonged to neither world, not to civilization, not to the tribes. A ghost between two fires. His name was Caleb Thornton, but the Apache called him Shash. Bear. The morning light broke pale and cold over the ridgeline. Caleb stood at the canyon's edge, a silhouette against the white expanse below. His breath formed clouds in the bitter air. His beard, thick and wild, reached his chest. Frost clung to every strand like tiny crystals. His hair, dark brown streaked with early gray, hung past his shoulders, tied back with leather cord. The bearskin coat wrapped around his massive frame, 6 feet 4 inches of muscle hardened by 11 years of mountain survival. But it was the scar that defined him, a jagged line carved by a grizzly's claw running from his left temple, across the ruined socket of his left eye, down to his cheekbone. The eye itself was clouded, milky white, sightless. A reminder, a trophy, a story written in flesh. He was tracking wolves, 3 of them. They'd been killing elk near his trap line for 2 weeks, costing him food, costing him furs, costing him the thin margin between surviving another winter and not. The tracks were fresh, 4 hours old, maybe less. They led down through the pine thicket toward the frozen creek bed where the elk came to drink. Caleb moved with practiced silence, each footfall deliberate, his breath controlled. The rifle rested easy in his hands. Winchester 73, 17 shots. He'd only need 1. But then he stopped. New tracks, human, bare feet, small. The stride uneven. Whoever made these prints was running, stumbling, desperate. Caleb knelt, brushing snow away from the depression. The toes were splayed, the heel strikes shallow. No more than 12 hours old. His good eye narrowed. He looked up at the surrounding ridges. Wolves didn't go barefoot in winter. An Apache didn't run through snow without moccasins unless something had gone terribly wrong. He made a choice. The wolves could wait. This couldn't. Caleb followed the track south, moving faster now. The trail wove between boulders, through deadfall, always descending. Whoever this was, they were heading toward the lower valley, toward exposure, toward death. After half a mile, he heard voices, 2 of them, speaking Apache, low and urgent. He dropped into a crouch behind a fallen pine and peered through the snow-covered branches. 2 women, Apache, both armed, one tall, strong-shouldered, with a braid of black hair hanging down her back. The other shorter, moving with a pronounced limp, her right leg dragging slightly. They were pulling something. No, someone. A third figure, small and limp, lying on a travois made from pine branches and rope. Caleb didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched. The taller woman stopped, turning her head. She was scanning the tree line. Her posture was alert, warrior's stance. Her hand rested on the knife at her belt. She said something to her companion. The shorter woman notched an arrow, bow half drawn. They knew he was there. Caleb slowly raised both hands and stood. His rifle remained slung across his back, unthreatening, open palms. The arrow swung toward him instantly. He spoke in Apache, rough, unpracticed, but clear enough. Shie, Yaate, sisters, peace, or The taller woman's eyes widened, just fractionally. She stepped forward, studying his face, the mark that crossed half his vision, the beard thick with frost. Recognition flickered across her features. Shash. Her voice was steady, controlled. But beneath it, exhaustion. I know your face. You helped Yellowbird's son 2 winters ago, gave him food when he was starving. Caleb nodded once. He gestured toward the figure on the travois. You're dragging someone. In this cold, they have minutes. The taller woman glanced back at the travois, then at Caleb, weighing options, calculating survival. My shelter, half-mile west. We go now or she dies. The shorter woman spoke sharply in Apache, angry, distrustful. The taller woman responded, her tone firm but not unkind. Then she looked back at Caleb. If you harm us, we will kill you. Caleb didn't smile, didn't react, just nodded. Fair enough. They moved quickly through the snow. Caleb led. The two women followed, pulling the travois between them. The shorter one kept her bow ready, arrow nocked, eyes never leaving Caleb's back. The taller one watched the surroundings, scanning for threats. No one spoke. After 15 minutes, they reached the shelter. It wasn't much. A shallow cave carved into the base of a limestone outcrop, reinforced with stacked stones and pine logs. The entrance was narrow, hidden behind a tangle of deadfall. Smoke rose from a crack in the rock above. Caleb had been living here for 3 months. Before that, another cave 10 miles north. Before that, a lean-to in the high country. Always moving, always alone. He pulled aside the deadfall and gestured them inside. The interior was warmer, not comfortable but survivable. A fire pit lined with stones burned low in the center. Furs and hides covered the floor. Dried meat hung from the ceiling. A water skin, a few clay pots, tools. Everything a man needed to live when he'd turned his back on civilization. Caleb spread a large elk hide near the fire, smoothed it flat with his hands. Put her here. The women lowered the travois gently. The figure on it was a girl, 15 years old, thin, dangerously so. Her lips were blue. Her skin, where it showed through torn clothing, was pale and waxy. Frostbite mottled her hands and feet, but it was the mark on her left shoulder that made Caleb's jaw tighten. A brand, burned into the flesh. The letter R, still red, still infected. He'd seen marks like that before. The taller woman knelt beside the girl, speaking softly in Apache, soothing words. She touched the girl's forehead. Too cold, far too cold. Caleb moved to the water skin, poured liquid into a clay cup, and held it over the fire to warm. He didn't look at the women, didn't ask questions, just worked. The shorter woman finally lowered her bow, but she didn't relax. She stood near the entrance, watching him with the kind of suspicion earned through bitter experience. The taller woman looked up at Caleb. Why do you help us? Caleb handed her the warmed water. Drink. Slow. He didn't answer her question. Instead, he pulled another hide from the corner and draped it over the girl's body. Then he added 2 more logs to the fire. The flames rose higher, casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. The taller woman helped the girl drink. Small sips. Patient. The girl coughed, choked, but swallowed. Her eyes fluttered open briefly. Dark eyes. Terrified eyes. She saw Caleb and tried to pull away. The taller woman held her gently, speaking Apache again. Reassuring. After a moment, the girl stopped struggling. She drank more. Then her eyes closed again. The shorter woman spoke, her voice sharp. She asks if you work for the slavers. Caleb met her gaze. Held it. No. Then why live alone? Why hide? Caleb stirred the fire with a stick. The silence stretched. Finally he spoke. Same reason you do. Nowhere else to go. The shorter woman snorted, but there was less hostility in it now. Just weariness. The taller woman introduced herself. I am Dawa. This is my sister, Mika. Caleb nodded. Caleb, or Shash, don't care which. Dawa's lips quirked slightly, almost a smile. Almost, Shash, bear, the name fits. Mika limped over to sit near the fire. Her right leg dragged, the knee stiff. Caleb noticed but didn't comment. Old wound, gun or arrow, either way, permanent. She spoke again, less aggressive now. You have a woman? Caleb shook his head. Bears make better company. Less arguing. Mika blinked, then laughed. A short, surprised bark of sound. Even Dawa's stern expression cracked, a genuine smile breaking through. The tension in the cave eased, just a little, but enough. Caleb stood and moved to the back of the cave, pulling down strips of dried rabbit meat. He dropped them into a clay pot with water and set it over the fire to boil. Soup, not much, but hot. That's what mattered. Dawa watched him work. Her eyes were intelligent, assessing. He could feel her measuring him, trying to understand what kind of man lived alone in the mountains. What kind of man spoke enough Apache to be understood? What kind of man helped strangers? After a while, she spoke again. The girl's name is Tala. She escaped from a slaver named Roland Kane. He brands people, sells them. She ran for 3 days. We found her this morning." Caleb's hand paused over the pot, then continued stirring. "Where is she from?" "Black Mesa, 60 miles north. Her family was taken 4 months ago. Parents killed. She and her brother were sold to mine owners in Tucson." "And the brother?" Dawa's jaw tightened. "Still there. His name is Coda, 6 years old." The fire crackled. Logs shifted, sending sparks up through the smoke hole. Outside, wind moaned through the canyon. Inside, 4 people who should have been enemies sat together in the warmth. Caleb ladled soup into wooden bowls. He handed one to Dawa, one to Mika. They hesitated. Mika looked at her sister, uncertain. Dawa nodded. They drank. Caleb ate his own portion in silence. When he finished, he spoke without looking up. "I know Kane, seen his work before." Mika stiffened. "You worked for him?" Caleb's expression didn't change. "No, but I saw what he did to a Pima village 3 years back. Took 19 people, left the rest to starve. I was trapping nearby, found the bodies a week later." Dawa leaned forward slightly. "Why didn't you stop him?" Caleb finally looked at her, his good eye hard, unblinking. "Because I was one man with a rifle against 12 men with guns and no conscience. I'm not a hero, I'm a survivor." The honesty hung between them, brutal, unadorned. Dawa held his gaze, then nodded slowly. She understood survival. She understood the calculations that kept you breathing when everything else fell apart. Tala stirred. She coughed, her body shaking. Dawa moved to her side immediately, checking her pulse, her temperature. The girl's eyes opened again, this time more focused. She spoke in Apache, weak but clear. Dawa answered, her voice gentle. Then Tala looked at Caleb. Fear flickered in her eyes but didn't overwhelm her. She said something else. Dawa translated. "She says thank you for the shelter, for the warmth." Caleb nodded once. The girl's fever was rising. Caleb could see it in the flush spreading across her pale cheeks. Infection from the brand. He'd seen it before. Without medicine, she had maybe 2 days. He looked at Dawa. The brand, it's infected. Dawa examined Tala's shoulder, her expression grim. "I know. I need yarrow, sage, and willow bark. Without them, the infection will kill her." Caleb stood. "I have yarrow and sage, dried, in the corner." He moved to a collection of clay jars and pulled down 2, handing them to Dawa. She opened them, sniffed, nodded approval. "But no willow?" Caleb shook his head. "Used the last of it a month ago. Closest willow trees are 2 miles south, near the frozen creek." Dawa looked at Tala, then at Mika, then back at Caleb. "I'll go." Caleb pulled his coat tighter. "We'll go." Mika spoke up, suspicious again. "Why would you help?" Caleb didn't answer immediately. He checked his knife, adjusted his rifle strap. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "Because I've watched enough people die when I could have done something." He walked to the entrance, paused, looked back. "You coming or not?" Dawa stood. She said something to Mika in Apache. Mika argued briefly, but Dawa's tone was final. She grabbed her own knife, checked that Tala was covered and warm, then followed Caleb out into the cold. The wind hit them like a fist. Caleb pulled his bearskin hood up, hunched his shoulders against the blast. Dawa moved beside him, her movements efficient despite the deep snow. They walked in silence for the first mile. The landscape was brutal in its beauty, white everywhere, endless, unforgiving. The sun hung low and pale, offering light but no warmth. Finally, Dawa spoke. "How did you learn Apache?" Caleb didn't break stride. "A Chiricahua woman taught me. 12 years ago, when I was dying." Dawa glanced at him. "What happened?" Caleb was silent for several steps. Then he told her. "I was a frontier scout, 22 years old, 1864. My unit was ordered to attack a village at Sand Creek. Peaceful village. Women, children, old men. We were told they were hostiles. They weren't." He paused. The memory was a scar deeper than the one on his face. "I was ordered to watch the perimeter, make sure no one escaped. I watched them gun down families, watched them set fire to lodges with people inside, watched them celebrate afterward." Dawa's expression was unreadable. "Why didn't you stop them?" Caleb's jaw tightened. Because I was a coward. I told myself I was following orders, that I didn't pull the trigger, so I wasn't guilty. But I was. I am. What happened after? I left, walked away the next morning. My lieutenant tried to stop me, shot me in the back, left me bleeding in a ditch. Dawa's eyes widened slightly. But you lived. A Ute woman found me, dragged me to her camp, healed me, taught me her language, taught me some Apache words from a woman in her village. When I recovered, I didn't go back. I came here, to the mountains, and I stayed. They reached a small clearing where skeletal cottonwoods clustered near the frozen creek. Willows grew among them, their thin branches brittle with ice. Caleb pulled his knife and began cutting bark carefully, selecting younger branches where the inner bark was still green. Dawa worked beside him, her movements skilled. Her burned right hand moved awkwardly, the fingers curled and stiff, but she compensated with her left. Caleb noticed but said nothing. Respect was in the silence. After they'd gathered enough, they started back. The sun was lower now, temperature dropping, their breath formed thick clouds. Dawa spoke again. Why do you stay? You could go to a town, live with people. Caleb kept walking. Tried that. Doesn't work. People ask questions. Want to know where you've been, what you've done. Easier to be alone. You don't get lonely? Caleb almost smiled. Every day. But loneliness doesn't shoot you for deserting, doesn't call you traitor, doesn't look at you like you're a monster. Dawa considered this. You're not a monster. Caleb stopped walking, turned to face her. His scarred face was serious. How do you know? Because monsters don't regret. They don't help dying girls. They don't cut willow bark in freezing cold for strangers. Caleb held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once and continued walking. They returned to the shelter as dusk fell. Inside, Mika had kept the fire burning. Tala was awake, sipping water. She looked stronger, marginally. Dawa immediately set to work, crushing the herbs and bark with a smooth stone, mixing them with warm water to form a paste. She cleaned Tala's wound first, gentle despite the girl's whimpers of pain. Then she applied the medicine, covering it with a clean strip of hide. Caleb watched from across the fire, impressed. Dawa worked with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times. A healer, not just a survivor, someone who saved lives. When she finished, Tala's breathing had already eased. The girl managed a weak smile. Thank you, both of you. Dawa smoothed the girl's hair back. Sleep now. Heal. As Tala's eyes closed, Mika spoke from her position near the entrance. We should leave tomorrow. Kane will be looking for her. Dawa nodded slowly, but she can't travel yet. Another 2 days at least. Caleb added wood to the fire. Then you stay 2 days. I'll keep watch. Mika frowned. Why would you do that? Caleb looked at her with his one good eye. Already told you, I'm done watching people die when I can help. Dawa studied him for a long moment. Then she reached across the fire, extended her left hand, the good one. Caleb looked at it, then took it. Her grip was firm, strong. We trust actions, not words. Caleb nodded. Fair enough. As night deepened, the four of them settled into the shelter's warmth. Mika took first watch, sitting near the entrance with her bow across her lap. Tala slept deeply, the medicine and exhaustion pulling her under. Dawa sat by the fire, mending a torn piece of her clothing with practiced efficiency. Caleb lay on his own pile of furs in the corner, hands behind his head, staring at the smoke-stained ceiling. He wasn't sleeping, just thinking. About choices, about debts, about the strange way life brought people together when they needed each other most. After a while, Dawa spoke softly. Shush. He turned his head. You asked earlier why we hide, why we run. I'll tell you. She set down her mending. 5 years ago, soldiers burned our village. My mother died in the fire. My younger sister, Ayita, was trapped inside our lodge. I ran in to save her, pulled her out. But my hand. She held up her scarred right hand. The flames took it, took my fingers, took my strength. And your sister? Dawa's voice was hollow. She died anyway, 3 days later. From the smoke, I saved her from the fire only to lose her to something I couldn't fight. Caleb sat up slowly. That's not your fault. Dawa's eyes were hard. I know, but it feels like it, every day. The firelight played across her face, beautiful despite the pain etched there, or maybe because of it, strength forged in suffering. Caleb spoke quietly. Scars tell stories. Yours tells me you're a survivor, a fighter, someone who ran into fire for family. That's not weakness, that's the opposite. Dawa looked at him, really looked, seeing past the beard, the scar, the damaged eye, seeing something underneath. What does your scar tell? Caleb touched the line across his face, that I'm too stubborn to die, and that I made a choice to live differently after I survived. They sat in comfortable silence after that. The fire crackled. Outside, wind whispered through the pines. Mika dozed at her post. Tala breathed easily in healing sleep. For the first time in 11 years, Caleb didn't feel completely alone. The second day arrived with crystalline cold. Caleb woke before dawn, his mountain instincts pulling him from sleep. He checked the fire, added wood, then slipped outside to check the surroundings. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, 4 inches. It covered their tracks from yesterday. Good. But it also meant new tracks would be obvious. Bad. He circled the shelter in widening spirals, looking for signs of intrusion. Nothing. The forest was silent. No birds, no movement. Just the heavy quiet of deep winter. When he returned, Dawa was awake, checking Tala's wound. How is she? Better. The infection is retreating. Your willow bark helped. Caleb poured water into a pot for morning tea. She'll need more. The wound is deep. I'll get more today. I'll come with you. Caleb glanced at her. Not necessary, I know, but I want to. They left after a sparse breakfast of dried meat and hot tea. Mika stayed with Tala, her bow ready, her eyes watchful. The walk to the creek was easier this time. Familiar path, less tension. They worked together in easy silence, cutting bark, gathering extra to dry for later. As they worked, Dawa asked questions about the mountains, about tracking, about survival. Caleb answered, sharing knowledge he hadn't spoken aloud in years. It felt strange, but good. On the way back, they stopped to rest on a fallen log. The sun was higher now, offering weak warmth. For a moment, the cold felt less hostile. Dawa turned to him. If Tala can travel in 2 days, we'll need to leave. Kane will search wider circles. We can't risk leading him to you. Caleb was quiet. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere far. Maybe north, maybe west. Caleb picked up a stick, drew in the snow. There's a town, Silver Ridge, 3 days south. A judge lives there. Ezra Winters. Retired. He's a good man. Tried to protect Apache rights in court. That's why they forced him out. Dawa looked at the crude map. A white judge won't help us. Caleb met her eyes. Ezra's different. I know him. He helped me once when I had trouble with bounty hunters. Didn't ask for payment, just did the right thing. Dawa was skeptical, but listened. Even if he helps, what can he do? Kane operates legally. The law says we're salvageable property. Caleb's jaw set. Then we change the law, or we work around it. But we try, because the alternative is running forever. And that's not living, that's just surviving. Dawa stared at the map in the snow, then nodded slowly. If we go to this judge and he betrays us, I will blame you. Caleb smiled grimly. If he betrays you, I'll hand you my knife myself. They returned to find Mika pacing, agitated. Tracks, fresh, 2 horses. Stopped a half-mile north, then turned back. Caleb's expression hardened. Scouts. Checking the area, how long ago? Mika pointed at the sun's position. 2 hours, maybe 3. They didn't have much time. If scouts came back with more men, the shelter would become a trap. Caleb made a decision. We leave tonight, before they return. Tala sat up, pale but determined. I can walk. Dawa checked her shoulder one more time. The wound is better but not healed. Travel will be painful. Tala's young face was set with adult determination. Pain is better than chains. As darkness fell, they prepared. Caleb packed essential supplies, food, water skins, extra furs, weapons. He left behind everything he couldn't carry. After 11 years, his life fit into one large pack. Mika questioned him. You're leaving everything. Caleb shrugged. Already lost everything once. You get used to it. They slipped out under cover of full darkness. No moon, just starlight reflecting off snow. Caleb led, following game trail south. Dawa supported Tala. Mika brought up the rear, bow ready, eyes scanning their back trail. They walked for 4 hours without stopping. The cold was vicious, but they pushed through it. Finally, Caleb found another shelter, a small cave hidden behind a rockfall, not as good as his permanent camp, but dry, defensible. They huddled inside, sharing body heat, too tired to talk. Sleep came quickly for everyone except Caleb. He sat at the cave mouth, watching the forest, listening, his rifle across his knees. Dawa woke sometime past midnight and found him there. You should sleep. Can't. Not yet. She sat beside him, not touching, just present. After a long silence, she spoke. Why are you really helping us, Shosh? Caleb didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because at Sand Creek there was a woman, young, maybe 20. She was holding a baby. She ran toward the creek, trying to escape. A soldier shot her. She fell. The baby cried. He paused. The memory was acid in his throat. They shot the baby too, to shut it up. I was 30 feet away. I had a rifle. I could have stopped it, but I didn't. I froze. And they died because I was a coward. Dawa placed her good hand on his arm. Just rested it there. You can't save them now, but you can save us. That matters. Caleb looked at her. In the starlight, her face was shadowed but clear. Strong. Honest. Does it? Does it really balance? Dawa's answer was firm. No, nothing balances that. But you try anyway. That's what makes you different from the men who did it. They don't care. You do. That's the difference between a man and a monster. They sat together until dawn, not speaking, just being. Two broken people who'd found each other in the frozen waste and decided to keep fighting. The third morning brought new danger. Mika, checking their back trail, returned running. They're coming, 6 men, maybe more. Following our tracks from yesterday. How far? 2 miles, maybe less. Caleb thought fast. We can't outrun them. Not with Tala. We need to disappear. How? Caleb pointed to a steep ravine filled with deadfall and ice. Through there, they won't follow on horseback. Too dangerous. We go on foot. It'll be hard, but it's our only chance. They descended into the ravine. It was treacherous, ice-covered rocks, hidden gaps, sharp branches. Tala bit back cries of pain as her wound pulled with each movement. Dawa helped her. Mika covered their descent from above. Caleb led, testing each step. Behind them, voices echoed. Men shouting, dogs barking. They reached the bottom and kept moving. The ravine narrowed into a slot canyon, barely wide enough for one person. They squeezed through. On the other side, the terrain opened into a different valley. Caleb turned to look back. The entrance to the slot canyon was invisible from the other side. Natural camouflage. They'll lose the trail here. Tracks end at the ravine. They won't find the slot. Are you sure? Caleb's scarred face was grim. No, but it's the best we have. They pushed on. By nightfall, they'd covered 10 more miles. When they finally stopped, Tala collapsed. Dawa checked her, exhausted but alive. That night, around a tiny, carefully hidden fire, Tala spoke for the first time about her brother. Koda is 6. He has a birthmark on his left shoulder. Like a bird, he's scared of thunder. He likes to draw pictures in the dirt, and he's alone with those monsters. Her voice broke. Dawa held her. We'll get him back. How? Dawa looked at Caleb. We're going to Silver Ridge, to find the judge, to find a way. Tala's eyes were desperate. Promise me. Promise you'll try. Dawa hesitated. Caleb spoke instead. I promise, we'll try. And if we can't do it legally, we'll do it anyway. Tala looked at him, this scarred, wild mountain man who'd appeared from nowhere, this stranger who'd become their hope. Why would you risk your life for a child you've never met? Caleb stared into the fire. Because someone should have risked theirs for the children at Sand Creek. No one did. I won't make that mistake again. The following afternoon, they reached a high ridge overlooking Silver Ridge. The town sprawled below, maybe 300 people. Wood buildings, dirt streets, a church, a general store, a saloon, civilization. Dawa tensed. I can't go down there. They'll arrest me on sight. Caleb nodded. You're right. You three wait here. I'll find Ezra, bring him up. And if he refuses, then we leave. No harm. Caleb started down the slope. Halfway down, Dawa called after him. Shash. He turned. Don't make me regret trusting you. Caleb's smile was sad. I'll try not to. He walked into Silver Ridge as the sun set. People stared. A wild man with a dead eye and a bear's beard. He ignored them, found the small house on the edge of town that Ezra called home. He knocked. The door opened. A lean man with white hair and sharp blue eyes looked him up and down. Ezra Winters didn't smile, but his eyes warmed. Caleb Thornton. Hell, I heard you were dead. Caleb stepped inside. Disappointed? Ezra closed the door. Relieved. Come in. You look like you need about 3 meals and a bath. Later. I need your help first. Caleb told him everything. Dawa, Mika, Tala, Roland Kane, the brands, the missing boy, the law that made slavery legal under another name. Ezra listened without interrupting. When Caleb finished, the old judge was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You're asking me to fight the law I spent 40 years upholding. Caleb leaned forward. I'm asking you to fight for what the law should be, not what it is. Ezra stood, walked to the window, looked out at his quiet town. If I do this, I'll make enemies, powerful ones. I'm already a pariah for defending Apache rights in court. This will finish me. Caleb stood too. Then don't. I'll understand. We'll find another way. Ezra turned. His eyes were hard, determined. I didn't say I wouldn't do it. I said I'd make enemies. Some things are worth that. Caleb felt something loosen in his chest. Hope. Unfamiliar and fragile. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We have a long fight ahead. Now, where are these women you're trying to save? On the ridge. Waiting. Ezra grabbed his coat. Then let's not keep them waiting. Bring them down. My house is safe. And tomorrow we start building a case that might just shake this territory to its foundation. They climbed the ridge together, found Dawa, Mika, and Tala huddled in the rocks. Dawa stood as they approached, knife ready. Ezra stopped well back, raised his hands. My name is Ezra Winters. I was a judge for 40 years. I'm here to help, if you'll let me. Dawa studied him, searched his face for lies, found only tired determination. Why? Ezra's answer was simple. Because it's right. Dawa looked at Caleb. He nodded. After a long moment, Dawa lowered her knife. Then help us save my people. Ezra smiled, a real smile. That's exactly what we're going to do. As the 5 of them walked down towards Silver Ridge under the cover of darkness, Caleb felt something he hadn't felt since before Sand Creek. Purpose, and for the first time in 15 years, the weight of his guilt felt just slightly lighter. Ezra's house sat at the edge of Silver Ridge, tucked behind a stand of cottonwoods that shielded it from casual observation. It was a modest structure. 2 rooms, stone fireplace, wooden floors worn smooth by decades of pacing while contemplating the law. Books lined every wall, legal volumes, philosophy, history, the accumulated wisdom of a man who'd spent his life trying to make justice real. Dawa, Mika, and Tala entered cautiously, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, looking for traps, for betrayal, for the inevitable moment when kindness revealed itself as cruelty in disguise. But Ezra simply gestured to the chairs near the fire. Sit, please. You're safe here. Mika limped to the window instead, checked the sight lines, the approaches, old habits, survival instincts honed by years of being hunted. Ezra watched her without offense. He'd seen that look before, in the eyes of Apache who'd testified in his court, in the faces of survivors who'd learned that safety was a lie white men told. He moved to the kitchen area, began preparing food, soup, bread, nothing fancy, just nourishment. Dawa finally sat, Tala beside her. The girl was exhausted. The journey had reopened her wound. Fresh blood seeped through the bandage. Ezra noticed. I have medical supplies, clean bandages, antiseptic. Not as good as traditional medicine, but it'll help. Dawa's expression softened fractionally. Thank you. Caleb stood by the door, still in guard mode, still processing the fact that he'd brought 3 Apache women into a white town in the middle of the night. Any number of things could go wrong, most of them fatal. Ezra served the soup, hot, simple, the kind of meal that reminded you that you were still human, still worth feeding. They ate in silence. Tala devoured hers. Mika ate slowly, watching Ezra between bites. Dawa finished half and set the bowl aside. Tell me about the law, about how Roland Kane operates legally while doing this. She touched Tala's shoulder. The brand, the proof. Ezra set down his own bowl, his face aged 10 years in the firelight. Arizona territory operates under salvage laws, designed originally for abandoned property. Livestock, goods, ore. But men like Kane twisted it. They claim Apache outside reservations or abandoned assets, subject to recovery and resale. That's insane. Ezra's smile was bitter. That's law, or at least that's how corrupt men interpret it. I spent 15 years fighting these interpretations. Lost more cases than I won. Eventually, they forced me into retirement. Too sympathetic to the Indians, they said, undermining territorial stability. Caleb spoke from the doorway. But there's a way around it. You said there was a way. Ezra nodded, one loophole. If we can prove that even one of Kane's captives is a United States citizen, then salvage law doesn't apply. It becomes kidnapping, a federal crime, and that brings in the marshals. Real law enforcement, not local sheriffs on Kane's payroll. Tala looked up. Coda's father was white, a trader named William Marsh. He married my mother in an Apache ceremony. He died 2 years ago. Fever. Ezra leaned forward. Did anyone witness this marriage? Any record? Tala shook her head. Apache ceremony. No white witnesses, no papers. Damn, Mika spoke up. But Coda exists. He's half white. That makes him a citizen, doesn't it? Ezra rubbed his temples. Legally, yes. But we'd need proof, birth record, witnesses, something to establish lineage. Without it, Kane will claim Coda is full Apache and salvageable. The room fell silent, hope deflating like a punctured lung. Then Caleb spoke. What if we get a marshal to witness Kane's operation? See the children, see the brands, see the conditions. Would that count as evidence? Ezra considered this. It might, if the marshal is honest, if he's willing to testify, if he has the courage to take on Kane's network. Do you know one? Ezra nodded slowly. Samuel Crane, marshal out of Tucson, 50 years old, former cavalry officer. Saw action against the Apache in the 60s. But he's fair, follows the law even when it's unpopular. If anyone would help, it's him. Dawa's voice was cold. A man who fought my people. And you think he'll help us? Ezra met her gaze. I think he'll help the law. And right now, the law is on your side, if we present it correctly. How far is Tucson? 2 days south. Hard ride. Caleb pushed away from the door. Then I leave at dawn. Dawa stood. We come with you. Too dangerous. Kane's men are looking for you. Every town between here and Tucson might have bounty hunters. Dawa's jaw set. We're not hiding while you fight our battle. It's not about hiding. It's about tactics. You're the target. I'm nobody. I can move freely. Before Dawa could argue, Mika interrupted. He's right. We'd slow him down, draw attention, get him killed. Dawa turned to her sister, betrayal in her eyes. You're taking his side? Mika's expression was pragmatic. I'm taking the side that keeps us alive. We stay here with Ezra. Caleb gets the marshal. We plan the rescue. When he returns, we move together. Dawa looked at Caleb, searching his face, looking for reassurance, for proof that this wasn't abandonment disguised as strategy. Caleb held her gaze. I'll be back in 4 days, 5 at most, with help. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. Caleb's scarred face was serious. I don't. The tension held for another moment. Then Dawa nodded. Once. Sharp. 4 days. If you're not back by then, we go after Coda ourselves. Fair enough? Ezra stood. Then we have a plan. Caleb rides to Tucson. The rest of us prepare the legal case. Gather evidence. Find witnesses who might testify about Kane's operations. What witnesses? Who in this territory will speak against him? Ezra's smile was grim. You'd be surprised how many people hate him. They just need someone brave enough to go first. That night, Ezra gave up his bed to the women. He and Caleb slept on the floor near the fire, or tried to. Caleb's mind wouldn't settle. Tomorrow he'd ride into civilization, into danger, into a world he'd abandoned 15 years ago. Around midnight, Dawa came out, found Caleb sitting up, staring into the dying embers. She sat beside him, close enough that he could feel her warmth, far enough that it wasn't improper. Can't sleep, not much of a sleeper these days. Dawa was quiet for a moment, then she spoke. When I was a girl, my mother told me a story about a warrior who'd done terrible things in battle, killed women, children. In his grief, he walked into the desert to die, but a spirit found him, gave him a choice: die now or live to balance the scales. He chose to live, spent the rest of his life protecting the innocent, saving those he could. He never balanced the scales, but he tried, and that trying made him worthy. Caleb didn't look at her. Your mother sounds wise. She was. They sat in silence. The fire popped. Somewhere outside, a coyote called. Finally, Caleb spoke. At Sand Creek, after it was over, I found a doll, a child's doll, made from corn husks and cloth. It was lying in the creek, floating. I picked it up. Still have it. Carry it with me. Why? So I never forget. Never let myself pretend it didn't happen. Never convince myself I'm not responsible. Dawa reached out, took his hand. The gesture surprised them both. You carry their dead, but Shash, you don't have to carry them alone. Caleb looked at their joined hands. Her left hand, whole and strong. His right, scarred and calloused. Two damaged people holding on. Thank you for trusting me. Dawa squeezed once, then let go. Don't make me regret it. I'll try not to. She stood, returned to the bedroom. Caleb watched her go. Then he lay back down and finally, mercifully slept. Dawn came cold and clear. Caleb prepared his horse, a sturdy roan gelding he'd traded furs for 2 years back. The animal was mountain bred, strong, reliable, used to hardship. Ezra handed him a letter. For Marshal Crane. Explains the situation. Vouches for your character. It'll help. Caleb tucked it into his coat. Thank you. Ride carefully. Kane has eyes on the southern road. If they spot you, they'll assume you're working against them. Let them assume. Dawa emerged from the house. She'd changed into clean clothes Ezra provided. Her hair was freshly braided, but her eyes carried the same fierce determination. She walked up to Caleb, handed him something, a small leather pouch, medicine, for wounds, and this. She placed something else in his palm, a carved stone, smooth, shaped like a bear, for protection. And to remember why you're going, Caleb closed his fist around it. I won't forget. 4 days. 4 days. He mounted, turned the horse south, didn't look back. If he had, he might have seen the worry in Dawa's face, the fear she wouldn't admit, the growing connection she couldn't name. The ride to Tucson was hard. Caleb pushed through, stopped only to water the horse and grab a few hours of sleep. He avoided towns, took game trails, moved like the ghost he'd become. On the second day, trouble found him. 3 riders appeared on the road ahead, blocking the path. Caleb recognized the type immediately. Bounty hunters, Kane's men, or working for him. The leader was a thick-bodied man with a red beard and cruel eyes. Where you headed, mountain man? Caleb kept his voice neutral. South. Private business. Private business in Kane territory. Interesting. You seen any Apache? Runaways? Nope. The man rode closer, studied Caleb's face. The grizzly's legacy carved into flesh. I know you, Bear Thornton, the deserter. There's still paper on you. That was 15 years ago. Army's got a long memory. So does Kane. He pays good for information about strangers helping Indians. Caleb's hand drifted toward his rifle. Not helping anyone. Just passing through. The second rider, younger with a knife scar across his nose, spoke up. We should take him in. Get the bounty. Easy money. The leader considered, then shook his head. Not worth the fight. Let him go. But, he leaned forward in his saddle. If we hear you've been making trouble, we'll come find you. And next time, we won't be so friendly. Caleb nodded once. Understood. They let him pass. But Caleb felt their eyes on his back for the next mile. His hand stayed near his rifle until they were long out of sight. He reached Tucson late afternoon of the third day. The town was bigger than Silver Ridge, maybe 2,000 people. Adobe buildings, Mexican influences, a military fort on the eastern edge, civilization with all its complications. Caleb asked around, found the marshal's office near the town center. A single-story building, bars on the windows, solid door. He tied his horse and entered. Marshal Samuel Crane sat behind a battered desk writing reports. He was exactly as Ezra described, 50 years old, gray hair cut military short, weathered face, hard eyes that had seen too much and remembered all of it. He looked up as Caleb entered. Help you? Caleb handed him Ezra's letter. Judge Ezra Winters sent me. It's about Roland Kane. Crane's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. He took the letter. Read it slowly. When he finished, he set it down and studied Caleb. Ezra vouches for you. That means something, but this letter makes serious accusations. Kidnapping, human trafficking, against a man who operates under territorial law. That law is being twisted, you know it is. Crane leaned back in his chair. What I know and what I can prove are different things. Kane's careful. He keeps records, pays fees, operates within the letter of the law, even if not the spirit. There's a boy, 6 years old. Name is Coda. His father was white. That makes him a citizen. Kane has him. That's kidnapping. Can you prove paternity? His sister can testify. Not enough. I'd need documentation or witnesses who saw the marriage. Caleb felt frustration rising. So you won't help? Crane held up a hand. I didn't say that. I said I need evidence. Real evidence. Something that will hold up in federal court. Because if I move against Kane without it, he walks free and I lose my badge. What would count as evidence? Crane thought for a moment. If I could witness his operation firsthand, see the conditions, the children, the brands, interview the captives, that might be enough, especially if any of them can prove citizenship. Caleb leaned forward. Then come with me. I'll take you to someone who escaped. She's got Kane's brand. She'll tell you everything. Crane studied him. Where is she? Silver Ridge, 3 days north, under Judge Winters' protection. Crane stood, walked to the window, looked out at his town. If I do this, Kane will come after me. He's got connections, money, friends in territorial government. Caleb's voice was steady. But you'll have the law on your side. Real law, federal law. Isn't that worth fighting for? Crane was silent for a long time. Then he turned. My father was a cavalry officer, fought in the Indian Wars, killed more Apache than I can count. Thought he was doing right, following orders. When I joined up, I did the same. Never questioned it. He paused. Then one day we raided a camp, women and children mostly. The chief had already surrendered. We were supposed to escort them to the reservation. But some of the men, they decided to have their fun first. Crane's face hardened. I tried to stop it. Got knocked down. When I woke up, 12 people were dead. Women, kids, and the officers covered it up. Called it justified force. I testified against them. Got drummed out of the cavalry. That's when I became a marshal. To do it right. He met Caleb's gaze. So yes, I'll help. Because some things are worth fighting for. Even when it costs you everything. Relief flooded through Caleb. When can you leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll bring 2 deputies. Good men. We'll need witnesses beyond just testimony. Caleb nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We've got a hard fight ahead. That night, Caleb slept in the marshal's office. A cell, ironically. Safer than a hotel where bounty hunters might find him. Crane lent him a blanket and locked the door for security. In the morning, they rode out. Crane, Caleb, and 2 deputies. Young men, early 20s. Fresh-faced but competent. They carried themselves like soldiers. The ride back was tense. Every rider they passed could be Kane's man. Every town a potential ambush. They moved fast, spoke little, pushed hard. On the second day, they saw smoke on the horizon. Crane pulled up his horse. That's coming from Silver Ridge. Caleb's blood ran cold. How far? 10 miles, maybe less. They spurred their horses to a gallop, racing against disaster, against the possibility that Caleb's 4-day promise had turned into a death sentence for the women he'd sworn to protect. They reached Silver Ridge at dusk. The smoke was coming from Ezra's house, or what remained of it. The roof had collapsed. Walls were charred, still smoldering. Caleb was off his horse before it stopped, running toward the ruins, Crane and the deputies behind him. The front door was blown open. Bullet holes riddled the walls, signs of a fight, blood on the floor. But no bodies. Caleb's heart hammered. Dawa! Zuh! No answer, just the crackle of dying flames. Crane checked the other rooms, found Ezra's books scattered, furniture overturned. The place had been searched, ransacked. They're not here. Dead or alive, they're not here. Caleb felt panic rising. He forced it down, forced himself to think, to track, outside. He found signs, many horses, at least 10, tracks heading east, toward the foothills, and something else, a piece of torn fabric, blue cotton, the same color as the shirt Dawa had been wearing. They took them. They're alive. How do you know? Because if Cain wanted them dead, he'd have left the bodies as a warning. He took them alive because they're worth money. Crane studied the tracks. These head toward Fort Bowie, Cain's main operation. How far? 40 miles. Through rough country. Then that's where we go. Crane grabbed Caleb's arm. We can't just ride in. He's got at least 15 men. Maybe more. We're 5. We need a plan. Caleb's good eye was blazing. The plan is we get them back and get killed doing it. That helps no one. Before Caleb could respond, one of the deputies called out, "Marshal, found something." They ran over. The deputy was kneeling by a tree. A message was carved into the bark. Fresh, done with a knife. 3 words. Devil's Basin, midnight. Caleb read it, then read it again. It's a trap, obviously, but it's also information. Cain wants us to come. He's drawing us out. Crane considered. Devil's Basin, I know it, old mining camp. Abandoned 5 years back, good defensive position, easy to ambush, perfect place for a trap. Or perfect place for a rescue if we're smart about it. Caleb looked at the marshal. What are you thinking? Crane smiled. It wasn't pleasant. I'm thinking we don't walk into his trap. We spring one of our own. They spent the next 4 hours preparing. Crane sent one deputy back to Tucson for reinforcements. The other stayed. Between Crane, Caleb, the deputy, and 3 townsmen from Silver Ridge who'd volunteered after seeing Ezra's house burn, they had 6 men. Not enough for a straight fight, but enough for guerrilla tactics. Crane laid out the plan. Cain expects us to come in from the west. The main road, that's where he'll have his men positioned. So we don't use the main road. Where then? North Ridge, above the basin. We come down from high ground, get into position before midnight. When Cain shows himself, we have the advantage. What about the hostages? That's the tricky part. We need to separate Cain from the hostages before we make a move. Otherwise, he uses them as shields. How? Crane looked at Caleb. You go in alone, unarmed, visible. Draw him out. Make him think you're negotiating. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's the only way to get eyes on the hostages. To confirm they're alive. Once we know where they are, we move. And if he just shoots me on sight, Crane's expression was serious. Then we adapt. But I don't think he will. He wants information, wants to know who you're working with, how much we know. He'll talk first. That's when we hit him. Caleb thought about Dawa, about Mika and Tala, about young Koda, still imprisoned somewhere in this nightmare, about promises made and debts unpaid. All right, I'll do it. They moved out at sunset, rode hard and quiet toward Devil's Basin, reached the North Ridge 2 hours before midnight, dismounted and proceeded on foot. The basin lay below, an old mining camp, falling apart buildings, rusted equipment, and in the center a large bonfire. Illuminating everything, Caleb counted 12 men, all armed, positioned around the perimeter. Cain stood near the fire, unmistakable, tall, red beard, arrogant posture, and there near a collapsed building, under guard, Dawa, Mika, Tala, and Ezra. Hands bound, but alive, relief and rage warred in Caleb's chest. Crane whispered, "We're in position. You go down on my signal. 3 shots, that's the sound to hit the ground. After that, we come in fast, understood?" Caleb, for what it's worth, you're a brave man, brave or stupid, sometimes hard to tell the difference. Crane smiled grimly. Isn't that the truth? Caleb waited. The minutes crawled. Then Crane tapped his shoulder. Time. Caleb stood, walked to the edge of the ridge, started down the slope, hands clearly visible. No weapons, just a man walking into the firelight. Kane's men saw him immediately. Rifles swung in his direction. Voices called out, but no one fired. Caleb reached the basin floor, walked steadily toward the fire, toward Kane. The slaver watched him come, a smile playing at his lips. Well, well, the mountain man himself, Caleb Thornton. I was wondering if you'd show. Caleb stopped 20 feet away. I'm here. Let them go. Kane laughed. Let them go? You really think it's that simple? What do you want? Information. You've been busy, talking to judges, marshals, making trouble for my business. I want to know who else you've talked to, what evidence you think you have. And if I tell you, then maybe I let the women live. Maybe. Caleb's jaw tightened. I don't believe you. Smart. You shouldn't. Because here's the truth, Thornton. You're all going to die tonight. You, the judge, the Apache bitches, all of you. And I'm going to enjoy it, he gestured. Two men dragged Dawa forward, forced her to her knees near the fire. She didn't cry out, didn't beg, just looked at Caleb with fierce, unbroken eyes. Last chance, tell me what I want to know. Caleb looked at Dawa, at Mika, at Tala, at Ezra, 4 people who trusted him, 4 people he'd led into this trap. Then he smiled. You want to know what we have on you? Evidence. Witnesses. A federal marshal and deputies positioned on that ridge right now with rifles aimed at your skull. Kane's smile faltered. You're lying, am I? Caleb raised his voice, loud enough to carry. Marshal Crane, I think it's time. 3 rifle shots cracked the night. The signal. Caleb hit the ground, rolling toward Dawa. Behind him, chaos erupted. Crane and his men opened fire from the ridge. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Kane's men scattered. Some returned fire. Others ran for cover. Caleb reached Dawa, cut her bonds with the knife hidden in his boot. Told you I'd be back. Took you long enough. They freed Mika and Tala. Ezra was already cutting himself loose. The old judge was tougher than he looked. Crane and the deputies charged down the slope. Kane's men were in disarray, outnumbered by surprise, if not by numbers. But Kane himself was running, heading for the horses, for escape. Caleb saw him, started after him. Dawa grabbed his arm. Let him go. No, he'll just do this again. Then we do it together. She snatched up a fallen rifle. Together they ran after Kane. The slaver reached the horses, mounted, wheeled around, saw them coming, drew his pistol. You should have let me leave, Thornton. He fired. The bullet grazed Caleb's shoulder. Burning pain, but not stopping. Caleb raised his own rifle, took aim, but hesitated. A clean kill shot. Ended here, but something held him back. The law, due process, everything Ezra and Crane represented. In that moment of hesitation, Dawa fired. Her shot took Kane in the shoulder. Same place he'd hit Caleb. The slaver screamed, dropped his gun, fell from his horse. They surrounded him, Caleb, Dawa. Crane arriving seconds later. Kane lay in the dirt, bleeding, beaten. His empire of cruelty crumbling around him. Crane handcuffed him. Roland Kane. You're under arrest for kidnapping, human trafficking, assault on federal officers, and about 40 other charges I'll think of on the ride back. Kane spat blood. You can't prove anything. Crane pulled a leather-bound ledger from Kane's saddlebag, the one Mika had mentioned. Names, dates, prices, 5 years of crimes documented in Kane's own handwriting. I think this proves plenty. The fight was over. Kane's men were dead, captured, or fled. The hostages were free. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. As dawn broke over Devil's Basin, Caleb sat with Dawa away from the others. They were both exhausted, both hurt, but alive. You came back, I promised. Dawa looked at him, really looked. Past the scars, past the damaged eye, past the beard and the wildness, seeing the man underneath. Thank you, don't thank me yet. We still have to get Coda. Actually, we don't. Caleb turned to her, confused. Crane's deputy checked Kane's main camp while we were here. Found 18 children. Coda was one of them. They're all free now, all safe. Caleb felt something break inside him. Relief so intense it hurt. It's over then. This part. But Shash, there will be others like Cain. More men who see my people as animals to be bought and sold. This isn't finished. I know. Will you help? When the next fight comes? Caleb looked at the rising sun, at the new day dawning, at Dawa beside him, strong and unbroken despite everything. He thought about Sand Creek, about debts unpaid, about promises to the dead and the living. Then he looked back at her. Yes, when the next fight comes, I'll help. Dawa took his hand. The gesture was becoming familiar now, comfortable. Then maybe. You don't have to live alone in the mountains anymore. Maybe there is a place for you with us. Where? Wherever we go next, whatever we build. You're part of this now, part of us. Caleb closed his eyes, let himself feel it. Belonging, purpose. Family, not of blood, but of choice. When he opened them again, Dawa was still there, still real. All right then, I'm in. They sat together as the sun climbed higher, watching the world wake up, knowing that harder days lay ahead, but also knowing they wouldn't face them alone. Behind them, Ezra was organizing the freed captives. Crane was securing prisoners. Mika was helping Tala reunite with her brother Coda. The boy was thin and scared but alive. Healing would take time, but it would come. For the first time in 15 years, Caleb Thornton felt something he'd thought lost forever. Hope. And watching Dawa's profile in the morning light, he felt something else too. Something he wasn't ready to name yet, but something good. Something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. The mountain man's promise had been kept, but the story was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. The journey back to Silver Ridge took 5 days, 18 children, 4 adults. Marshall Crane's wagon carried the smallest ones. The older children walked, holding hands, singing Apache songs Dawa taught them. They were going home, to a place that would accept them. 3 months passed like water flowing over stone, slow, inexorable, changing everything. Silver Ridge had transformed. Where once suspicion and prejudice ruled, now something new was growing. Something fragile but real. Coexistence. Not perfect, not easy, but happening. Ezra's house had been rebuilt. Larger this time, with rooms enough for the children freed from Cain's network. 18 souls, ages ranging from 4 to 15. Apache, Navajo, 1 Hopi girl, 2 half-white children whose parents had been murdered. All of them damaged, all of them healing. Dawa ran the household with quiet efficiency. She'd become more than a healer. She was a mother to the lost, a teacher, a symbol of survival. The townspeople had been wary at first, Apache living openly in their midst. But watching her tend to sick children, seeing her patience with the traumatized, minds began to change. Hearts began to soften. Mika had taken charge of security and hunting. Her limp hadn't slowed her. She'd organized the older children into teams, teaching them to track, to shoot, to survive, but also teaching them to read, to write, to understand the world that had tried to destroy them. She was harder than Dawa, less forgiving. But the children respected her. Fear and love mixed in equal measure. Tala had blossomed. Reunited with Coda, she'd found purpose. She helped Dawa with the younger children, told them stories, sang them songs. Her wound had healed into a scar. The brand would never fade. But she wore it now not as shame but as proof. Proof she'd survived. Proof she was stronger than the men who tried to break her. And Caleb. Caleb had stayed. He'd rebuilt Ezra's house with his own hands, chopped wood for the winter, hunted to keep the larder full, fixed what was broken, built what was needed. But more than that, he'd become something he'd never expected. Part of a community. The children called him Shash, said it with affection, now not fear. He taught the boys carpentry, tracking, how to read the forest, how to respect the mountain, how to be strong without being cruel. And every evening when the work was done, he and Dawa would sit on the porch, watching the sunset, talking, sometimes about the past, more often about the future, about what they were building, what it could become. They hadn't spoken of love, The word felt too small for what was growing between them, too simple. This was deeper. Partnership, trust. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest winter and chosen to walk towards spring together. But spring in Arizona territory came with storms. The morning everything changed arrived with deceptive calm, clear sky, mild temperature, birds singing. Caleb was teaching young Coda how to make arrows when the rider appeared. Marshall Crane, alone, riding hard, his face grim. Caleb stood, felt the familiar tension return, the sense that peace was always temporary, always one moment away from shattering. Crane dismounted, looked around at the children playing, at the rebuilt house, at the life they'd created. You've done good work here, Caleb. Not just me. I know, but still, good work. He paused, his expression darkened. I wish I was here just to say that. What's wrong? Crane pulled a folded paper from his coat. Official looking, legal seal, territorial governor issued a writ. Says this settlement violates reservation laws. Says Apache living off reservation without permits are subject to immediate relocation. Caleb's jaw tightened. These children aren't criminals. They're victims. Law doesn't care. Governors under pressure from mining interests. They want Apache confined to reservations, away from potential mineral deposits, away from water rights, away from anything valuable. Ezra emerged from the house. He'd overheard. His face was pale but determined. When? They're sending soldiers, federal troops, week from today, to enforce relocation. Where would they take the children? San Carlos Reservation, 300 miles south, overcrowded, underfed, disease-ridden. Half these kids wouldn't survive the journey, let alone the conditions. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Dawa came out, Mika behind her. They'd heard too. The whole household was listening now. Children peering from windows. The fragile peace they'd built cracking under the weight of inevitable violence. Dawa spoke first, her voice steady but her eyes blazing. We won't go. Crane looked at her with genuine sympathy. Then they'll arrest you. Take the children by force. It'll be ugly. People will die. Let them try. Mika stepped forward, her hand on her knife. We've run before. We'll run again if we have to. But we won't let them cage us. Ezra raised a hand. Wait. Before we talk about fighting or running, let's think. There has to be a legal solution. Crane shook his head. I've looked. Territorial law is clear. Without citizenship or permits, Apache are subject to relocation, and permits aren't being issued. It's a closed loop. What about the children with white fathers? They're citizens. Two of them are. Coda and a girl named Sarah. But that doesn't protect the others, and the Army won't split families. They take everyone or no one. Caleb had been silent, thinking. Now he spoke. What if they weren't in Arizona territory? Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean? Caleb walked to the porch railing, looked out at the mountains. New Mexico territory, 50 miles east. Different jurisdiction, different laws, different governor. Crane considered this. The writ only applies to Arizona. You're right, but he hesitated. New Mexico isn't exactly friendly to Apache either. And you'd need land, property rights. You can't just squat. What about homestead claims? Ezra's eyes widened. The Homestead Act. Any citizen can claim 160 acres of surveyed public land. Prove it up over 5 years. It becomes yours. But these women aren't citizens? No, but Caleb is. And so am I. Silence. The implications settling in. Dawa looked at Caleb. You'd do that? Claim land for us? Not for you. With you. Ezra nodded slowly. It could work. 2 homestead claims. 320 acres total. Enough for a small settlement. We register it as a cooperative community. Mixed citizenship. Legal residents working claimed land. Crane stroked his chin. It's clever. Might even hold up in court. But you'd need to move fast. File the claims. Get people on the ground. Establish occupation before the Army comes. 1 week. 1 week. Caleb looked at Dawa. What do you think? Dawa walked to stand beside him. Looked out at the mountains. At the land that had tried to kill her and had instead become home. I think. We've run enough. Time to put down roots. Mika spoke up. Roots need defending. We'll need to be ready for trouble. Always. Ezra pulled out a map. Spread it on the porch table. They gathered around, planning, plotting, choosing a future. The location they selected was a high valley in the Mogollon Mountains, just across the New Mexico border. Water from a year-round creek, timber for building, game for hunting, isolated enough for safety, accessible enough for trade. Crane would file the paperwork, use his federal authority to expedite. 2 homestead claims, Caleb Thornton and Ezra Winters, legal citizens exercising legal rights. They had 6 days to move, 18 children, 4 adults, everything they owned. It would take all 6 days. The exodus began at dawn. They traveled light, essential supplies only, food, tools, seeds, weapons, medicine, everything else left behind. The children were excited. An adventure, they didn't fully understand the danger. The stakes, Caleb was grateful for that. Let them have their innocence a little longer. They moved in 2 groups. Dawa led the first, stronger children, faster pace. Caleb took the second, younger kids, slower, more careful. Mika ranged ahead, scouting, watching for soldiers, for bounty hunters, for any threat that might stop them. The journey was hard. Spring and runoff made creeks impassable. They had to detour, lost time. On the 3rd day, young Koda developed a fever. Dawa treated him with herbs. The fever broke. They pressed on. On the 5th day, they saw riders in the distance. 4 men, uniforms, cavalry. Mika came racing back. Army scouts, 2 miles behind us. They've seen our trail. Caleb thought fast. How long until they catch up? Hour, maybe less. Can we outrun them to the border? Not with the children. Dawa's face was set. Then we don't run. We face them. Ezra looked alarmed. Face them? They're federal troops. If we resist, we buy time. The border is 3 miles ahead. If we can delay them even 30 minutes, we make it. How? Caleb smiled grimly. We negotiate. He positioned everyone carefully. Children hidden in a ravine with Mika standing guard. Dawa, Ezra, and Caleb stood in the open, waiting. The cavalry arrived, 4 soldiers led by a young lieutenant, maybe 25, fresh from West Point. By the book. He rode up, saluted crisply. Sir, ma'am, I'm Lieutenant James Whitmore. We've been tasked with enforcing relocation orders for unauthorized Apache in this territory. Caleb stepped forward. These children are under my protection. We're moving to New Mexico. Homestead claims already filed. The lieutenant frowned. I don't have information about homestead claims. My orders are clear. All Apache to be escorted to San Carlos. These aren't all Apache. Some are citizens. Mixed heritage. I'll need documentation. Don't have it with me, but Marshal Crane can verify. Federal Marshal outranks territorial orders. The lieutenant hesitated. This wasn't covered in his training. Legal complications, jurisdictional questions. Then something shifted. From the ravine, children's voices rose. Not words, just a song. An Apache lullaby Dawa had taught them. 18 voices, some strong, some trembling. Apache and white singing together. The lieutenant had heard that song before. His Navajo scout used to sing it to his own children, before the man died protecting the lieutenant's unit. The soldier looked at the ravine. At the children he'd been ordered to drag to a death camp. Children who sang despite everything. His hand fell from his weapon. While the lieutenant wrestled with his conscience, Ezra spoke up. Lieutenant, I'm Judge Ezra Winters, retired but still licensed to practice law. What's being done here is legal settlement under the Homestead Act of 1862. Interfering with legal settlement is federal obstruction. Is that a threat, Judge? It's a fact. Your orders apply to unauthorized settlement. This is authorized. You enforce those orders against us, you're acting outside your jurisdiction. That's a court-martial offense. The lieutenant looked uncertain, young, out of his depth. I need to consult with my commanding officer. By all means. Nearest fort is 40 miles south. Take your time. We'll be in New Mexico by then. The lieutenant's jaw tightened. He knew he was being outmaneuvered, but he also knew these people were right. Legal settlement. Federal marshal involved. A retired judge calling him out. If he forced the issue and was wrong, his career was over. He made a decision. I'll file a report. Let command sort it out. But, he looked directly at Caleb. If you're lying, if this is a trick, I'll come back. And next time I'll bring 100 men. Caleb met his gaze. It's not a trick, it's just people trying to live. The lieutenant stared a moment longer, then wheeled his horse. Let's go. The four soldiers rode south, away, leaving them standing in the dust. Dawa let out a breath she'd been holding. That was too close, but it worked. This time. What about next time? We'll handle next time when it comes. They reached the valley as the sun set on the sixth day, exhausted, hungry. But there, across the border, on unclaimed land that would become theirs, the creek ran clear and cold. Pine forest climbed the surrounding slopes. The valley floor was open, grassy, perfect for building. Caleb stood at the center, looked around. This is it. This is home. The children cheered. Even Mika allowed herself a smile. They worked through the night, setting up temporary shelters, starting fires, establishing a camp. By morning, they had the beginnings of a settlement. Over the next weeks, they built. Caleb designed the structures, using mountain techniques he'd learned over 15 years of solitary survival. Log cabins, low and sturdy, built to last, built to withstand winter. The main house came first, large enough for all 18 children. Dawa's domain, where she could heal and teach and keep watch. Then individual cabins, for privacy, for families as they formed, a communal kitchen, a storage house, a workshop, all of it positioned around a central courtyard. Defensible, connected, community. Townspeople from Silver Ridge came to help. Mrs. Holt brought supplies. Doc Miller brought medicine. Former soldiers who'd fought Apache now raised walls beside Apache women. Not friends exactly, but not enemies anymore either. Something new was happening, something the territory hadn't seen before. Integration, cooperation, proof that different peoples could live together if they chose to. But not everyone was pleased. 2 months after the settlement was established, trouble came. A dozen men rode in at noon, rough-looking, armed, led by a man in his 40s with cold eyes and expensive clothes. His name was Clayton Morse, land speculator, mining investor, the kind of man who saw people as obstacles to profit. He dismounted in the courtyard, looked around with undisguised contempt. Caleb met him. Dawa beside him. Ezra coming out of the main house. Help you? Morse smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I'm Clayton Morse. I represent a consortium of investors interested in this region. We're surveying for mineral deposits. Survey all you want, just not on our land. That's the thing. This isn't your land, not legally. Caleb's expression hardened. We filed homestead claims. Legal and proper. Marshall Crane has the paperwork. Morse pulled out his own documents. Your claims were filed in New Mexico territory, but this valley, it's not surveyed land. The boundary is actually 2 miles east. You're in Arizona, and your claims are invalid. The words hit like a hammer. Ezra grabbed the documents, read them, his face went pale. He's right. The original survey placed the border wrong. There was a correction last year. This valley is still Arizona territory. Dawa's voice was ice. Convenient. I'm sure that correction had nothing to do with mineral deposits. Morse shrugged. Land is land. Law is law. You're squatting on Arizona territorial land without permits. That makes this an unauthorized settlement, subject to immediate dispersal over my dead body. Morse's smile widened. That can be arranged. His men shifted, hands moving to weapons. But before violence could erupt, a new voice cut through the tension. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Marshall Crane rode into the courtyard, but he wasn't alone. Behind him came 20 men, former soldiers, townspeople, even a few Apache from other settlements who'd heard what was being built here. Crane dismounted, stood beside Caleb. Mr. Morse, I'm familiar with your consortium, also familiar with how you operate, bribing surveyors, forging documents, claiming land that isn't yours. Those are serious accusations, Marshal, and I've got serious evidence, including testimony from the surveyor you bribed. He's already talking to avoid charges. Morse's confidence faltered. Even if that's true, these people are still illegally settled. Actually, they're not. Crane pulled out new documents. I filed a petition with the territorial governor, requesting special settlement permits for this community based on humanitarian grounds, care of orphan children, mixed citizenship, cooperative development, and he approved it. As of yesterday, this settlement is legal, fully authorized, with a 5-year renewable permit. Morse's face darkened. You can't do this. We have investors, contracts, rights. Your rights don't override theirs. This land is settled, occupied, worked, under federal homestead protection and territorial permit. You want it, take it to court, but you won't win. The standoff held. Morse's men outnumbered but outmaneuvered. The law, for once, on the side of the vulnerable. Finally, Morse remounted his horse. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Go home, Morse. Find another mountain to strip mine. Morse and his men rode out. Defeated but not destroyed. They'd be back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not this year, but eventually. But that was a problem for another day. That evening, the community gathered. Everyone who'd helped, everyone who'd built this place. Ezra stood to speak. 3 months ago, we were refugees, homeless, hunted. Today, we have land, we have law, we have each other. This is what's possible when people choose courage over fear. Mrs. Holt raised her cup. To new beginnings, to new beginnings. They drank, laughed, celebrated. The children played, the adults planned. Hope was tangible, real. Caleb found Dawa standing apart, looking at the valley, at everything they'd built. He joined her. You did it. You gave them a home. Dawa shook her head. We did it, all of us. She turned to him. Her scarred hand reached for his. I never thanked you for everything, for saving Tala, for fighting Cain, for staying when you could have left. Caleb took her hand. I didn't stay for gratitude. Why then? Because I found something here I'd lost. Purpose, family, belonging. He paused. In you, I stayed for you. Dawa's eyes softened, the wall she'd built around her heart, brick by brick, beginning to crumble. I'm scared, Shash. Every time things get good, they get taken away. My mother, my sister, my village. I'm scared to hope. Caleb pulled her closer. I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of not trying, of walking away from this, from you. They stood together, not kissing, not yet, but holding. Two people who'd survived the unthinkable, who'd found each other in the frozen waste, who'd chosen to build rather than destroy. The moment stretched, perfect, fragile. Then Koda's voice shattered it. Dawa, come quick! The baby goats are born! Dawa laughed. The sound surprised them both. Pure joy, uncomplicated. She looked at Caleb. To be continued? To be continued. They walked back to the main house, to the noise and chaos in life, to the community they'd built from nothing. 6 months later, the settlement had a name, written on a sign Caleb carved and Mika painted, Promise Valley. It wasn't subtle, but it was true, a promise kept, a promise renewed every day. The population had grown, 30 people now. More Apache families had arrived, drawn by stories of a place where they could live free, where their children could learn and grow without fear. But also white families, poor farmers, widows, people pushed to the margins who found acceptance here that society denied them elsewhere. It wasn't perfect. Arguments happened. Cultural differences caused friction. Mika and a white carpenter nearly came to blows over the proper way to build a roof. But they worked through it together. Dawa ran a school now, teaching children to read in both English and Apache, preserving language, preserving culture, while also preparing them for the world they'd have to navigate. Caleb had become the settlement's primary builder and defender. When bears threatened the livestock, he dealt with them. When disputes needed mediating, he listened. When winter came harsh and supplies ran low, he hunted until there was enough. He was respected. Not because he demanded it, but because he'd earned it. Through work, through sacrifice, through staying when leaving would have been easier, and slowly, carefully, he and Dawa had grown closer. They still hadn't spoken the word love, but it was there, in the way she saved him the last piece of bread, in the way he always checked her cabin first when he returned from hunting, in the small touches, the shared glances, the comfort of proximity. One evening in late autumn, Caleb was repairing the main house roof when Dawa climbed up to join him. Need help? Always. They worked in companionable silence, replacing damaged shingles, the sun setting behind the mountains, painting everything gold. When the work was done, they sat on the roof edge, legs dangling, watching the valley settle into evening. Dawa spoke first. Do you ever regret it, giving up your solitude, the mountains? Caleb considered. Sometimes. It was simpler alone, quieter. But he looked at her. It was also empty. I thought I wanted isolation. Turned out I just wanted peace, and I found more of that here with all this noise and chaos than I ever did alone. Dawa smiled. Naalnish would say you found your true path. The old medicine man, he'd visited twice, blessed the settlement, performed ceremonies. He'd also pulled Caleb aside once, told him something in broken English. He told you about the bear spirit, didn't he? Dawa looked surprised. How did you know? He told me the same story, about how the bear walks between worlds. Fierce but protective, solitary but loyal. He said I carry bear medicine. Do you believe that? Caleb shrugged. I believe we are what we choose to be. And I choose to be here, with you, with them. He gestured at the valley, at the lights beginning to glow in cabin windows, at the smoke rising from chimneys, at life continuing. Dawa rested her head on his shoulder. Natural, easy. I'm glad you stayed, Shosh. Me too. They sat until full dark, until the stars emerged, until the valley was quiet except for the creek and the wind and the sound of their breathing. Finally, Dawa spoke again. The children asked me something yesterday. What? They asked when you and I are getting married. Caleb went very still. What did you tell them? That it's complicated. Is it? Dawa lifted her head, looked at him. Is it? Caleb thought about Sand Creek, about 15 years of self-imposed exile, about the long road from broken soldier to mountain hermit to whatever he was now. He thought about Dewa, strong, damaged, beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with spirit. He thought about promises, old ones and new ones, debts paid and debts still owed. Then he made a choice. No, it's not complicated. Dawa, I'm not good with words, never have been. But I know this, I was dying when you found me, not from cold, from believing I was beyond saving, from carrying guilt so heavy it crushed everything else. You gave me a reason to stop dying, a reason to start living, and he paused. The word was hard, but important. I love you. I love who you are. I love what you've built. I love the way you care for those children. I love your strength and your scars and your refusal to be anything less than yourself. So if you'll have me, if a broken mountain man is worth having, I'd be honored to spend whatever time I have left trying to deserve you. Dawa's eyes were wet. She touched his scarred face, traced the line from temple to cheek. You already deserve me, Shosh. You deserve me the moment you chose to help strangers instead of walking away. The moment you promised Tala we'd save her brother. The moment you rode into danger because it was right. She kissed him then. Soft, careful. The first time for both of them in more years than either wanted to count. When they pulled apart, Dawa was smiling. Yes. The answer is yes. They were married 1 month later. Not in a church, not with a white ceremony, but in the Apache way, with Naalnish presiding, with the entire community as witnesses. Caleb wore clean clothes, his beard was trimmed, his hair bound back. He looked almost civilized. Almost. Dawa wore traditional dress, deerskin decorated with beadwork, her hair braided with feathers, beautiful in a way that stopped out breath. The ceremony was simple, vows spoken in both languages, gifts exchanged, blessings given, a recognition that two souls had chosen to walk together. When it was done, the community celebrated. Food, music, dancing, stories told, and laughter shared. The children ran wild. The adults drank and reminisced. It was perfect. As night fell, Caleb and Dawa slipped away, to the cabin they'd built together. their home. Inside, by firelight, Dawa spoke. I never thought I'd have this. After everything, I thought I was too broken. Caleb pulled her close. We're all broken. That's what makes us human. But broken things can be mended, made stronger in the mended places. Is that what we are? Mended? Dawa smiled. No, we're mending. Still in process, but together, and that makes all the difference. They held each other, two survivors, two fighters, two people who'd chosen hope over despair, love over loneliness, future over past. Outside, the valley slept, Promise Valley, built on the ruins of what was, pointing toward what could be. It wasn't perfect, would never be perfect. Challenges remained, threats would come. The world outside was still hostile, still unjust, still dangerous for people like them. But here, in this small corner of mountains and sky, they'd built something real, something lasting, a place where Apache and white could live together, where orphans could become family, where the broken could heal. And in the morning, the work would continue, building, growing, defending, living. But tonight, Caleb Thornton, once a soldier, then a hermit, now a husband, slept peacefully. No nightmares, no guilt, just the steady breath of the woman beside him, just the knowledge that he'd kept his promise, not just to Tala, not just to Dawa, but to himself, to stop running, to stand and fight, to build instead of destroy, to love instead of hide. The mountain man's promise had been kept, and in keeping it, he'd found redemption, not perfect, not complete, but real. And in the end, that was enough. The end, years later, travelers passing through the Mogollon Mountains would speak of a settlement, hidden in a high valley, where Apache and white lived together, where children of mixed heritage grew up speaking two languages, where a scarred man with one eye and a woman with a burned hand had built something impossible. Some said it was a sanctuary, others called it a rebellion. A few dismissed it as a myth, a story too good to be true. But it was real. Promise Valley endured through drought and flood, through territorial politics and federal interference, through all the challenges that tried to break it. And at its heart always were two people, Bear and Healer, Caleb and Dawa, still building, still fighting, still choosing each other, day after day, year after year. Their story became legend, told around fires, passed from generation to generation, embellished, simplified, mythologized. But the truth was simpler than any myth. Two broken people had found each other, had chosen to mend together, had built a place where others could do the same. And that, more than any legend, was the real miracle, the real promise kept. Caleb Thornton once asked Nailnish what it meant to carry bear medicine. The old man had answered, "The bear dies each winter and is reborn each spring. You died at Sand Creek. You were reborn in the snow. That is bear medicine. That is second life." Caleb carried those words until his last day, and when he finally passed at the age of 73, surrounded by children and grandchildren who carried both Apache and white blood, his last words were simple. I was given a second chance. I didn't waste it. Years later, travelers passing through the Mogollon Mountains would speak of a settlement,